Let's get this movable feast underway. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Tolkien. My name's Justin, and as always, that is Clifford Broadway, the producer and writer of Ringers, Lord of the Fans, who's been documenting the Tolkien fan experience ever since it started. And he's joined by
Mithrandir. This is Mithrandir. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the Grey Wanderer, the most appropriate name I could think of for such a demon child as this. Anyways, hi everybody. My name is
I
Clifford
think he'll
Broadway.
fit in here.
Oh,
Would you?
he's
Would
a
you put
skinny
the
cat. He could fit in there. And
Would you put the
you've
cat?
got the popcorn bucket. I love that. Okay, everybody, welcome to Torn Tuesday. I've got mine right here off camera. It has not been assembled yet, but here's my
Some assembly
Warhammer.
required. This is true.
Some,
Some
some.
assembly required.
This is the famous popcorn bucket that you use to bonk people
Look how big
in the
it is
cinema
compared to
when
my
they have
head.
their
This
phones
is a
out.
giant piece of architecture. Look at that. It's the size of my
It's
head.
really a specific, delightful surprise. It's a real surprise that they designed this just for us Lord of the Rings fans. But yeah, we've got to talk about the War of the Rohirrim. We've got to talk about music. We've got a great guest who's with us today. We're going to be talking about the box office. We're going to talk about fans' response to the War of the Rohirrim and the beautiful, beautiful score, lovingly composed by Stephen Gallagher, who was previously the music editor on the Hobbit films, working with Howard Shore and the team about a decade ago. And so here we are. We're back in cinemas, baby. Here we are.
We're back.
This is
We're
the time.
totally back. And
This is the
so
time.
many
Yes.
comments on our Facebook and the Instagram of people just saying, "Oh my God, we're back." They go in, they watch the movie, they hear the music, they come out. It's
Yeah,
a solid movie, and everyone says, "We're back." We got to get
we
through
are.
some big news before we bring in our special guest. So I guess
And I need to
let
change my background.
yeah, you do. Let's
Yeah.
start with this, Cliff. It was brought to our attention today.
Holy cow, they're different. They're different from one another.
I went to AMC, and so mine is the official AMC edition.
Yeah,
I guess we could
that's the
call
one
it
I've got.
a longbow. But the
Yes.
Regal edition is perfect for a dwarf. So Varking, if you're watching, I think you want to go to a Regal and pick yours up because
Gosh,
there
that's
is
hilarious.
a size difference. And this is the size of the of the AMC one.
That's hilarious.
Incredible.
I'm gonna get my Santa hat. Hold on a second. Oh my gosh.
Cliff is getting his Santa hat.
I have to have my Santa hat
So
because
there you go. Yeah,
I'm
two
not gonna be
different
here.
sizes. And you can see the shade of color is just a little bit different. You can see obviously mine is AMC. The Regal
not
one
gonna work.
is shorter. And also the other thing you can get at AMC is this War of the Rohirrim oversized mug. Look at the size of this mug.
That's huge. But are you really drinking out of that? Isn't that for popcorn?
No, it's for soda and drinks and
It's
other
for soda and drinks
and other wonderful holiday drinks. So there you go.
yes.
Cheers to the
Father
Rohirrim.
Christmas.
Look at the size
Thank you,
of these
Katie.
things.
Thank you, Katie, in the chat.
These
That
are
is
giant.
amazing.
Look at the size of my head. Look at the two different sizes. It's just insane.
I'm telling you what, this is really cool.
So here you go. Cheers. Did you see this
Here-
at your
here's to
local
great merch.
cinema, Cliff? When you
Cheers.
went inside, did you see the Stein?
I saw everybody buying the Steins. I wanted the hammer, so I got the hammer instead. And evidently, it's the AMC one, which is a different shape and a different color and a different length of pommel. Is that a pommel? The handle of a hammer has a proper name. I don't think it's called a pommel, is it?
Like a pommel
That's for a
horse?
sword.
Am I supposed to do flips on this?
No, a pommel of the sword. I'm thinking that there must be different nomenclature specifically for a hammer's the handle. Maybe it's just a handle. It's not called that.
Am I?
Anyways,
So
we'll have to do
what
some
do you guys
research.
think? Am I gonna put this on the wall? Do I put it on the door over here? Do I put it kind of like behind my head, like
You
right
you
over
keep it
here?
at your bedside. Keep it on the bedstand right next to your bed, so that in the middle of the night, when, the monster under the bed, the monster with the tearaway face, here in a flash and gone without a trace. When any of those creepy ghoulies from Halloween Town come in to mess up your Christmas, then you're ready.
Best
You're ready.
$50 I ever spent.
O
The hammer
Otaku
and the
Senpai
stein.
says a haft. Maybe it's called a haft. Maybe that's true. You're right.
So if you get both, it's about $50, but it's well worth it. And I'm telling you, you will regret not getting it. You will. This thing is incredible, and
It really is awesome.
the
Isn't it
top
hard to get
pops
open?
open.
What have you got in there? What have you got hiding in there?
Aw, Happy Hobbit Kelly gave me a gift, and she told me not to open it until Christmas. So
Oh, that's so cute.
it's hiding,
That's really
It's
cute.
hiding in my hammer, and there it shall stay.
That's really cute. Until Christmas.
Yeah.
Very cute. Happy
Hey,
birthday
baby.
to your wife, Higgy Baby. Thanks for joining us on the live show. Here you go. You're supposed to be celebrating with your wife, but you're here with us talking about horses and watchers in the water. Oh, by the way, we identified the river. They're at the Entwash. In that part of the movie where the rabid, crazy with rabies Oliphant comes thundering over the hill to come and get the main characters, she leads this beast into the fens that are just adjacent to the mouths of the Entwash. And that's actually the river that flows out of Fangorn Forest and goes down and is a tributary to the great river Anduin, where the mouths of the Entwash open into the river just south of the falls of Rauros. And I've seen the movie 4 times. I've seen the War of the Rohirrim 4 times, and I have noticed very distinct things every time. And I'm looking at that map, that really beautiful 3D style flyover where you're flying over the map with the great eagle. And I'm like, oh, look at that. They have a place. It's the only place name on the map where they, I believe, invented a brand new name. Yeah. You see that? There it is. Can you zoom in on that? Let's see that full size. That's it.
What do you
And
want to
if you,
see?
I did a photograph of this place, and it's in Old Saxon, right? Literally, they're like many of the
But where on the
words and the
map?
names.
Point me in the direction, wise one.
All right, go see where it says West Emnet and East Emnet. Look where it says East Emnet and go straight directly south. Straight south. Do you see the forested area? And it's
I'll
called
say Omega. Mouths
Whaled.
of Ancient Entwash.
No, where it says Whaled say Watega.
Okay, that's what it says. I can't
And
see that.
I was talking to somebody who knows a little bit about old Anglo-Saxon, and he said David Sallow, who is the original professional Tolkien linguist who worked with Peter Jackson and company over 20 odd years ago. Was it really that long? David Sallow created a lot of the new languages and the names that were used in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so this Old English is Whaled Se Witega. There it is. You see it on the map? And this is a new location near the mouths of the Entwash. And that's the word for forest. The old Anglo-Saxon word for forest is Weald, Weald. And
There you
that
go.
means forest of the Witega. That Witega, it must be the name of the beast as it was called in the Rohirric language. I'm assuming that this name is Anglo-Saxon, Weald Se Witega. And when you look at the
Hey,
beautiful,
Jordan Rennells is in here. The guy
oh,
who
there's
does all
Jordan.
the music for
Oh, very good.
the Middle Earth soundscapes that you guys love so much.
So cool.
He heard he saw music in the title and said and popped on in. Yeah, we've got some news to go through, so we'll bring Stephen in a minute because we just need to talk about opening weekend of War of the
Let's
Rohirrim.
see.
According to our
According to
Overlord's Facebook AI, They say that viewers are eagerly watching the War of the Rohirrim and enjoying tributes to Bernard Hill, who played King Theoden. Audiences are thrilled by iconic music and themed movie experiences like Special Steins and Warhammer popcorn, making for an unforgettable experience. Thank you,
Warhammer
AI,
popcorn.
for telling us exactly what we need to know. Isn't AI
That
great?
is so silly. The Warhammer popcorn makes it sound like the people at Games Workshop are responsible for making Warhammer 40K popcorn, but it's really the hammer. Um, but
Well,
I got a funny
real quick,
feeling that
we
hold
checked
on,
out.
I was about to finish the sentence about when we're talking to Stephen Gallagher about the titles of all of his tracks on the original motion picture soundtrack. There is one called The Watega, and the Watega is named on the soundtrack. There it is, beautiful artwork. It's also named on the map. So I'm gonna ask him as soon as Stephen comes on the air. I'm gonna ask him about the language and whether he got help from David Salo, the classic
Well,
linguist,
we'll ask
who's
him in a sec.
I want to ask
But
him all
I
these
want to
great
get to the
things.
conversation. So let's power through the news real quick, Cliff, because there's just a couple
Great to
little
see you,
things
Jordan.
of news. Happy birthday, Miranda Otto! Today is her birthday. Miranda
No
Otto.
way! I didn't know that. I
She
didn't
is
know.
in the
That's
top
great.
5 of box office on her birthday. Today is her actual birthday, and her movie
Wow.
War of the Rohirrim is
Yep,
in the top
is in the top five.
Cliff, you know who else's birthday is it? It is
Whose?
Bernard Hill.
Bernard Hill shares the same birthday?
Bernard Hill's
Wow.
birthday is
I'm gonna cry. I don't want to cry.
is today,
Ugh,
and
I
a
don't want to
couple
cry,
weeks
but
ago,
that man was so awesome.
a few months ago,
So
we had a
awesome.
tribute to Bernard Hill, and
We did.
let's play a clip from that tribute earlier this year.
So it was really sad that he passed just before that was possible. So I watched a lot of the tributes that came in, watched a lot of the scenes that have been played in his honor. What an extraordinary performance he gave as King Theoden. So I just want to add, and particularly his death scene is just such a gift to cinema and a gift to audiences for all time, depicting the fact that, the time will come for all of us. I'm not sure I like this system, but that seems to be the way it works. So I'm just so grateful for the movie and that performance that he gave. And so he will be missed. To Gabriel, I send love and good wishes, and to Allison. This is obviously a very hard time for those who are close to him and for all of us. So, I just want to add my, on behalf of my wife, Christine, and our 3 daughters, send our family's love out to Bernard and his family and the community, our Lord of the Rings family. There's no better place to express that honor, I can imagine, than on the One Ring, which has been such a great, great gathering place that honors the work of the trilogy. So much love to you, Bernard, always.
Time with Monopoly events at Comic-Con in Belfast, and you got to sit with Sean Astin and Elijah Wood, and we did a whole kingly, majestic entrance for you. What was it like to see Sean and Elijah back in Belfast?
Oh God, it was really wonderful. Because while we were on our tables, and I'd lean back up from mine a bit and just look down to see them two together. Yeah, it was really emotional. Just seeing them, because the only other place where I'd seen them both together was in New Zealand, and it was just like,
wow.
And of course, that's Bruce Hopkins, who played Gimli King Theoden's
Yeah.
assistant that helps
Wow.
him get dressed up. But what a wonderful
And
tribute.
now you've got me as a blubbering mess on my own show. You've got me as a blubbering, crying mess. Thank you, Justin. That's
Well,
you know,
it is Bernard's
it's beautiful.
It's Bernard's birthday today, and he is in
It's
the
his
top
birthday.
5 at the global box office. And
Yes,
there's no
yes.
greater tribute to that. A couple more things before we bring in our special guest. We lost another one of our family, Lord of the Rings family, David Weatherly,
Oh
who played
no,
Barliman Butterbur.
No, I didn't know
died
he
this
passed
weekend.
on. Oh, that's so sad.
Yes, sir. David Weatherly joins an illustrious crew of Lord of the Rings actors who have gone on to White Shores, including Andrew Lesney, Christopher Lee, and so many others.
Oh
So
man,
Barliman
that's
Butterbur.
so sad.
And
Jesus.
one more quick loss. You guys have probably bought some wonderful official Lord of the Rings jewelry, including the One Ring for Badali Jewelry. Well, Paul Badali, the founder of Badali Jewelry, the first and biggest Lord of the Rings licensee of jewelry, and they've made all of the Rings of Power and the Arkenstone and everything else handcrafted by Paul himself. Let me see if I can zoom in. Paul Badali.
He was
passed
such an
away this
amazing
week.
gentleman. Such an amazing gentleman. Wow.
So it's
Okay.
been
All right.
a week of celebration, a week of memorial, and a week of box office success. And so we are really excited, and fans are really excited because some were brought to tears in cinemas to hear these classic themes again. And who better to bring us home just days after the launch than the composer of War of the Rohirrim, Mr. Stephen Gallagher. Let me bring him in. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Hi, gentlemen. How are you?
Welcome, Stephen Gallagher. Gosh, it is so great to have you here with us. I'm trying to clear my sinuses and my tears right now.
It's all good.
So if I don't talk for a second, it's because
okay.
you know,
I get it.
Yeah, you. Well,
we brought you
you're
in
here.
while we were playing that
You're
clip.
here.
Had you seen that clip before?
I hadn't actually, and it sort of made me tear up a bit.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
I didn't. Yeah, I it was quite a quite a moving segment.
We found that clip and we played it at San Diego Comic-Con when executive producer Jason DeMarco was on the panel, and all the Warner Brothers execs were there, and the Amazon people and the Middle-earth Enterprises people were all in the audience.
Oh, wow.
And we ended the panel with that video, and
Yeah.
and we all said "To the King," and the entire room stands up and says "To the King."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
A
That's
tribute,
incredible.
a very deserved tribute.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's start right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the impact that Lord of the Rings, and especially the music of Howard Shore, has had on the world and the box office and the Oscars and everything like that. And then to hear how it impacted these actors personally and how he was overcome with emotion, just remembering that. So where do you start when you think about War of the Rohirrim? Music about, the kingdom of Rohan and Theoden's theme there. Like, how do you even start?
Well, it's a good question, and one that I personally mulled over for quite some time. But I was very privileged and very thankful that I had the opportunity to use some of Howard's themes that he wrote for the original trilogy, and some of the finest, most iconic music written for cinema, period. At the same time, it's incredibly daunting working in the sort of blinding golden light of Howard Shore's music.
Yeah.
But I think Gaia Wise summed it up. She has this phrase where she was saying that taking on this was a daunting privilege, which I think which sums it up very nicely for me. A daunting privilege. By the way, Justin, Clifford, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's very nice to see you both.
I know we've
entirely
missed
my
each other
pleasure.
so many times, but
Yeah.
we followed each other and
Yeah.
all of our posts.
We have
It's actually
been,
nice
yeah.
It's amazing to be talking with you both. I'm hope you're both well. It's very nice to see you.
Did you hear?
I'm way better now. Now that you're here, I'm way better now. I don't know how much more this guy can stand. Like it's been...
Well, you know, when I told Discord that you might be coming on today, they wanted to know if you had heard the music, the instrumentals that fans had recorded when you posted the sheet music, because Discord.
I did, yeah.
Oh, we had
yeah.
a lot of fun with that. We had a
That was
lot of
great.
fun.
That was fantastic.
We're like,
it was really,
let's
really
explore
surreal.
this chord. What's going
Yeah.
on here? You know what?
And the follow up, did that scare you off from posting any more of that sheet?
Oh, I got a bit of a slap across the wrist for that. So I
Oh, no.
Yeah. No, it was honestly, it was so surreal because it was the end of our very first day of scoring, and I'd just gotten the news that my daughter had COVID, and then so myself and the music producer Mark Wilshire, who was staying with me, were like, "Oh my goodness, we can't go home. We've got to find another place to stay for a week or so," and we were sort of trying to juggle where to stay. And then I remember checking my phone and hearing the arrangement and going, "Oh my goodness, this is quite a surreal thing to be experiencing right now." After we'd sort of just done a pass on recording it, to hear it back again was really bizarre. It was amazing. I was like, oh, wow, that's really actually pretty wild. Nothing like that's ever happened to me in my life before. So it was quite deeply flattering and very surreal all at the same time.
Very. Wow.
So thank you, whoever's responsible for that.
I can imagine.
She's in the chat room right now.
Hi.
Is in there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hello, last one.
Hi
we
there.
have so many wonderful people in the chat. We have people who've joined us from Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and every other platform in between. We've got lots of folks here. And the thing is, let me start because I surround myself with musicians. I don't know why, but many of my friends are guitarists, bass players, drummers. One of my closest friends, who's, going to be here for board game night later on, he's a multi-instrumentalist. He'll go from playing death metal, black Nordic metal with his bass. He's one of the most technically proficient bass players in all of LA.
Wow.
But now he's at a music program at California State University, Northridge, and he's playing upright double bass in the orchestra. So, he'll go from one bass to an upright double bass. And they just did Holst the Planets like a couple of weeks ago. One of my all-time favorite pieces.
Beautiful.
And I just asked him right away, I said, Ben, what would you ask Stephen Gallagher? And he says, his first question is, what composition program does he use and why?
Oh, that's a great question. So in answer to that question, do you mean the composition program that I used to compose inside of is Pro Tools. And the reason
Pro Tools.
I use Pro Tools is because I've used Pro Tools for a long time, decades. And the reason I use it to compose in is because as an environment, because I also work as a music editor.
Right.
It's just an environment that I'm very comfortable about moving around in.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are composers who would sort of swear by, other DAWs like Cubase or Logic, and those are all great. I sort of feel like Pro Tools is my comfort spot. It feels like the audio side of it is really so solid. The MIDI side of it has improved a great deal over the last decade, which I'm very, very thankful about. And I kind of don't think it matters what you use. I don't think there's a perfect DAW, but for me, Pro Tools is something that I've spent so much time in that I feel like I can freely move about inside the world and not have to second guess or even think about how to do the things I want to do.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much why I use it. But I've used other things. I've used, like, I started off in Fairlight, actually, a long time ago.
Oh wow, I remember.
Are you
that.
talking about Fairlight keyboards that they were programming back in the 80s? I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Wow.
CMI3. Yeah. I used to. So we when I was studying composition at university, they had a CMI Series 3, which I always, coveted. And then one of my first dialogue editing gigs, I worked in Fairlight, and there's a lot that I liked about it. But primarily all my editing jobs were in Pro Tools, and ultimately that's where everything, all the material that we record and write ends up on the dub stage in our editors' sessions. It's all Pro Tools. So it feels like but for me anyway, and I can't speak for anybody else, but for me it feels like at this point it feels like the correct ecosystem to be in.
Will Pro Tools produce printed sheet music with all the stabs and the instruments?
Yes.
Is that a different program for?
No, Pro Tools can do that. It can't really. It's not to the point where it can do it at the level of, say, Sibelius, which is the other program that I use.
I've heard of that, Sibelius.
Yeah, Sibelius and Pro Tools for me are kind of coexisting sort of tenets of this ecosystem that I work in. So Pro Tools can give you a sort of a printed music option, but it's in no way as detailed as one would like. Often. So
we've got a ton of questions
Excellent.
coming in from all walks of life. Tons of fans here in the chat room and on Discord. So
Amazing.
Apologies if we go this way and that way and zigzag all around.
It's all good. Look, I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so thankful to you both for inviting me, and so please, anything you'd like.
Okay.
Well,
let's.
I got
you got a question first, because I got one. You go first, Justin.
So I'll
go
go first because
okay.
because in the chat room we have Jordan Rennells. He is a composer himself who did a long expected soundscape. He makes audio soundscapes that go along with the audiobooks that Andy Serkis narrates.
Oh, that is so cool.
And
they can go along with your reading experience if you're reading it yourself, or they can go along with Andy's excellent audiobooks. But he creates these beautiful atmospheric and musical and ambient tracks that go with the playback of it's just so cool. And Jordan's an incredibly talented friend of ours. He's a great guy.
Amazing. Hey Jordan, how's it going? I think the world needs more of what you do, personally.
Yeah, and fun story. He actually came to Comic-Con in July, and it was part of our booth and showcasing it when Bear McCreary stopped by and sat and listened in the headphones and was like, dude, this is like so amazing.
It's really cool.
That's
really
amazing.
Really cool.
That's great.
But it just shows that this whole community, like you were saying, like hearing your music being played by fans on the internet, we're all just fans of this, aren't we? Like
that's how I'm here. I'm a fan as well, and it's like, honestly, again, I have to say this from the outset, as soon as I was privileged enough to get the opportunity to do this, I have to say the messages that have come from people on the One Ring have been so lovely and so touching, and I've been so blown away with people just reaching out and saying, hey, it's been it's been deeply touching. And anyone who has sent a message, thank you so much. Honestly, it just feels like a really wonderful community. It's a real privilege to be.
All right. Well, let's
Oh,
get through the
that's so
questions
awesome
because
to hear.
you might be put under the spotlight on some of these
Uh-oh.
technical ones that I don't even know.
Oh,
But let's
goodness.
start off.
My goodness. All right.
Jordan Rennells wants to know: do you do any writing actually by hand, and how do you go about spotting a scene?
Oh, Jordan, these are great questions. Yes, I do some writing by hand, and fundamentally, why I do that is because sometimes I want to divorce myself from working in front of a computer, and sometimes I just want to sit down with a piano or a synthesizer or something that's just not looking at a screen. And I feel like when pen and paper or pencil and paper, I feel like gives you it feels weird to say this, but somehow a different set of expressions can be sort of freed. And sometimes what I write down makes zero sense, but the intent behind it, I can somehow translate into the computer, if that makes sense. I feel like I don't ever want to be confined to I don't want to be confined to how the computer works, if that makes sense. I don't want the computer to dictate how I write or what decisions that I make. And for the most part, it doesn't. But there's just a freedom, there's a tactile freedom, there's a palpable unleashing of ideas when you've just got a pencil and paper. And I find that a really kind of psychological how do I put it elegantly? I'm not sure I can. Like an elegant way to dump the contents of my brain onto a tangible medium, if that makes sense. And it was really quick. So yeah, that's primarily when I write with pen and paper. And how do we go about spotting a scene? That's an excellent question. In this film, what I had to start off with was really just the script and some reference artwork. That was the first thing I saw. And I had an initial conversation with the director, Kamiyama-san, Kenji Kamiyama. And we talked about broad things first, like broad ideas about the story and the characters and the environment. And what musical identity or what kind of musical bent he was after for this film. And it quickly became apparent to me that he wanted the score to be grown out of the same earth that grew Howard Shore's, magnificent score for the original trilogy. We go through scenes and he would take me through, because you have to remember, in most live action films, you'd probably be seeing sort of things that are a little bit more kind of complete as a sequence. But in animation, a lot of the times, well, in this film, what we were looking at was like kind of almost pencil sketches, like charcoal
storyboards, kind of, right?
Storyboard, exactly. So a lot of the spotting in this respect, nice mug. Sorry, I digress. A lot of the what we were looking at was the visual information wasn't quite present. So a lot of the spotting session was just Kamiyama-san saying, well, okay, it may look like a charcoal sketch here at the moment, but when we rendered it and when we've done all the artwork, this is what you're going to see, and this is why it's going to happen. And really, he was basically telling me the emotional intent behind each scene and how it sort of related to not only the sequence that we were watching and the arc of the film, but also sort of the larger world from the trilogy back to where we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and it's sort of deciding about, when music starts, when music stops, and what it's doing, are the basic tenets of a spotting session. But in this one, the extra tenet was just, informing us what we were actually going to be looking at when the animation was complete, because it wasn't always obvious.
I have to admit that you've given me one of the best jump scares I've had in any film all year. And you
Oh,
really made my bones jump right
oh,
up because she's in that fen, this forest.
yeah, yeah,
She's looking around, and the camera takes this very, very deliberate point of view of she's looking here, looking there.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
is it? And then suddenly, bam, there's this big hit with all the instruments right when they cut to that rabid beast
yeah,
sneaking
yeah,
up
yeah,
behind her.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you, Mr. Stephen Gallagher, made me
yeah.
jump to high heaven. That was the best
Oh,
jump scare I've had. But I
Clifford, thank you so much. Thank you so
I,
much indeed. We
Hey,
played with
Jeff
that quite a
Scott's
bit
in
to
the
get that
chat
loved it.
right.
room. Jeff
Thank you.
Scott,
I
of course,
loved
was
it.
Thank
in
you.
the Hobbit
You're
movies.
welcome.
Uh,
Oh,
right?
hello there.
Jeff Scott.
Okay,
He was in
Jeff
he was in
Scott
the
is here in the
Bars
chat.
theme, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, here's my next question. What kind of unorthodox instruments did you find yourself using, if any?
Oh, yeah, no,
And
quite a, for me, sure. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Sorry, you
just
have a second part?
that no, I was just curious because I
Yeah.
mean, I love to listen to a lot of classical music, and I'm
Mm,
paying attention to orchestral color
mhm.
and things that I haven't heard, or like the way that Rimsky-Korsakov
Yeah,
is a great example of
yeah,
the height
color.
of orchestral color.
Yeah.
And I mean, he does, especially in his Russian Easter Overture, where he
Yeah, that's a
uses
good one. That's yeah.
so much color that comes from just the staccato of the strings, and
Mm,
then there's the cor anglais, and then there's just the use of these instruments in certain
mm.
ways. And so, in light of that context, did you find yourself thinking, I need this particular odd instrument and I want to use it here? Was there anything like
Oh,
that for you?
yes, absolutely. That's a great question. The answer is yes, and to bring it sort of closer to home, we really
Mm,
wanted to do that because throughout both trilogies, Howard Shore is just a master of using unexpected instrumental elements combined with, the traditional sort of West European kind of orchestral forces to produce sort of surprising and memorable results, right?
yeah,
So, for example, the Hardanger fiddle, which the Norwegian fiddle
I
with resonating strings, is such a key touchstone of the Rohirrim culture.
yeah,
When we first hear that plaintive melody in the Two Towers, it's I mean it's hard to sort of put ourselves back into the early part of the century when we first heard that sort of sing out above the orchestra as we looked over the plains of Rohan. But that was just such an amazing moment. I remember, like, what is this instrument? It sounds like a kind of in the string family, but it sounds ancient and like it's grown out of the earth. Um, and there's numerous examples of Howard's inventive um, timbral control or timbral imagination throughout the trilogies, and also throughout his work. He's a master at it. So with that in mind, we wanted to sort of explore some characterful instrument choices to acknowledge. Primarily, the first one was the Dunlending culture, and Wolf and Frecker and General Targ being sort of characters that have sort of come out of that context, that cultural context. We wanted something sort of identifiable and something that felt how the culture might sound, something sort of ancient, maybe not as sophisticated or as refined as something you would discover in like the Rohirrim culture. And on YouTube, Mark and I were Mark Wilshire, the music producer. We were looking at some, instruments, and we thought it would be interesting to explore something in the kind of the wind section. So something that we could blend with our lower winds to make something kind of unstable and earthy and kind of a little roughshod. And on YouTube, we found a woman called Jude Rees playing the crumhorn, and as soon as we watched her videos, we were like, "This is amazing. This could be great." And we got in touch with her and we said, "Hi, love your video. We're working on this film, and we're wondering if you'd be interested / available to come and play on the score." And her musical compadre, Dr. Emily Barnes, they acquiesced and kindly came down to London and brought all of these incredible ancient wind instruments, these double reed caps. And
Ooh.
I was one of my favorite days. So the crumhorns are basically like a capped reed instrument, sort of vaguely at the end of the medieval, beginning of the Renaissance period is sort of when they were at their most popular. Although, you know, I'm hoping for a comeback personally. But the sound of the crumhorn is just so uncompromising. It's basically either on or it's off. There's not really a great deal of dynamic ability with that instrument. Basically, it almost sounds like if I'm going to be flippant, it sounds like a giant kazoo.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
your name? I'm looking on YouTube right now.
Oh, Jude. Let me just see if I Jude, Jude
Jude
she is.
Rees, Rees.
All right, let's see if we can bring this up.
Oh yeah, man, amazing. Let
Wow.
me see if I can.
This
find
is
it.
so cool.
Yes, Jude. Yeah. This is it.
Forgive
That
me.
is so
What
cool.
made
That
you
is so
say
cool.
that's good for Lord of the Rings? What am I missing? Obviously,
Justin.
my brain does not work.
Obviously.
Oh no, Justin, that's a great question because honestly, like, I mean, it's not
Um,
immediate. It doesn't scream Lord of the Rings, does it? I agree.
No,
I
to
totally
me,
agree with you.
Zoo.
the first thing that I thought of was Dead Can Dance. That sounds like, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
You-
it does.
yes.
Does sound like
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, she went on to work with Hans Zimmer for the first Gladiator film, and you know,
Well, the
they
chat
got an
room's on
Oscar.
mine
Yeah,
side
yeah,
because it
yeah.
sounds like an 8-bit video game according to the chat room. So you
For
got-
video
got
game,
some
you know what? I
chip
cannot
tunes
disagree
going
with
on?
that. Chip tunes, yeah,
does.
medieval chip tunes.
That is super cool. But I'm instantly taken back to one of those
What's the
early
new
Dead Can Dance albums.
teenage engineering medieval?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, have you seen that?
Too good.
If
That's too
you
good.
end up
Love
doing
that.
Hunt for Gollum, I want to see that teenage engineering keyboard in the studio.
It's a
That
date,
is-
man. It's a date. We'll get
Hey,
like an army of them.
Speaking
So-
of
so,
weird
yeah.
instruments, the chat room keeps
That's
screaming at me
fascinating.
in all caps about what let me scroll up the Roush Fife.
Oh, the Roush Five.
What
How do you pronounce that?
Roush
I've never
Five.
heard of this before.
Oh, okay, the Roush Five. Let's. I'm not sure if there's a YouTube clip of it, but the Roush
No.
Five is basically like it's another ancient. Well, when I say ancient, sort of medieval kind of Renaissance-esque
Let's see here. We got some
instrument,
here.
right?
Wow,
German medieval sham.
Okay, this one's a Rauschpfeife in the pitch of G major or A
I just
minor.
want to hear it, dude.
Made this one work with a Highland bagpipe reed.
Does he play
Because
it?
this makes,
No, he's going to talk about it. He's
No.
not going to play it.
of course,
Oh, there it is. All right,
Wow,
that's enough
that's
of that.
so.
That's wild.
So
That is
where does that fit
very
into
cool.
this score, and why is the chat room so excited about it?
This is so
I mean,
cool.
I'm glad that people are excited about it. I was a Roush Fife newbie. You know, I was a Roush Fife amateur, and I'd never really heard one until Emily and Jude. It was in the they just happened to mention it on an email because we were saying, you know, we really love the crumhorns, and what else do you have in your arsenal of specialist winds that you think might be a good fit? And I think Jude or Emily would jokingly said, "Oh, we've got a Rauschweif, but you probably won't want that because it's just so sort of, such a terrifying instrument at loud volume. And we were like, bring the Rauschweif, please. They bought it. And I think I remember Emily playing it for the first time, and Mark and I were just like, ah!
That is brilliant.
We loved it, and we layered it in several sections where the harmony gets really dense. The first place we looked at was just before the Dunlending's attack, and the siege tower falls on top of the ramparts of Helm's Deep. There's a moment where the ropes are cut and the siege tower falls, and there's this big sort of clashy kind of diminished fourth layered of chords.
Yeah.
We put the Rauschweif on top of that, and we were like, it just sounds like, horrific, but also it's not iconic, but it just seemed to fit what we were, this kind of gigantic thing just falling free fall. It was like all at once kind of beautiful and terrifying, and the Rauschweif just seemed to sum that up.
Brilliant. That is just
elegantly.
It's very cool.
It's such a cool instrument, and again, honestly, the volume that it can produce, and the sort of when it gets up into the top and things start getting, if there's a medieval instrument that sort of could potentially be close to the human nervous system, pitched down like many octaves, the Rauschweif would be. It's just like your entire body screams danger when you hear it, which
I would say so.
I think, but Emily and Jude are incredible musicians. They were so patient with us, and they were so generous with their knowledge. And
they're from Mexico, yeah.
No, they're from they live in England. The Hardanger soloist Karen Bentley Pollock lives in Mexico, and that she recorded her Hardanger parts in Mexico. So we had remote sessions with her, and yeah, the Rauschweif, the crumhorns, and the other instrument we used in their arsenal was the shams, and they're like we doubled the trumpet parts of the Dunlending music with shams, and it gave it sort of a more softer, sort of a more kind of more of an older sort of tonality. Like the specialist winds were basically, we wanted to blend them with the wind section of our orchestra.
It's a
just
soprano
to sort of give
instrument?
it a shade. Yeah.
Now I'm curious. Yeah, this is 100%, yeah.
Wow. Excellent.
So when we doubled that with trumpet, it was quite this amazing sort of sonority, like you get the brassiness of the trumpet and the sort of square wavy kind of reedy quality, and it sort of softens the trumpet, but also makes it sound
earthy.
Yeah, for me, I mean, earthy and sort of older. And for the Dunlending culture, we wanted something that sounded, a little less refined, a little less modern by Rohirrim standards, more kind of more ancient, if that makes sense.
It does.
The chat room keeps talking about the drummer on top of the tower.
Oh, yeah.
You were just talking about using the radio.
That was my next question, actually.
Yeah.
You didn't use a timpani? Did you use a different kind of drum for him?
We used a taiko drum.
But was that storyboarded, or did you orchestrate it with a drummer and they drew in the drummer?
It was storyboarded. Yeah. It was storyboarded when we were when Mark Wilshire and I went to Tokyo to meet with Kamiyama-san. We saw that and we were like, oh, that is very cool. What sort of drum are you imagining? And he was saying that, he thought the taiko would be an appropriate sound. And Mark and I went to the Taiko Museum in Tokyo to sort of explore the sounds of different drums in the taiko family. And Kamiyama-san was also, he also said, look, if taiko was just one part of Japanese percussion, one part of the Japanese, culture of instruments, there's a lot of other interesting things in the theater tradition, gagaku and other court music, that if you want to explore, we'd be happy to, that you'd integrate into the score. So at the Taiko Museum, we found lots of other sort of smaller, high-pitched percussion instruments that we just felt would be a really good fit in the world, and just sort of pepper through the score as a kind of a punctuative kind of element. And so that was like an amazing invitation that Kamiyama gave us. And yeah, the taikos we used, we went to the Taiko Museum, found the drums that we wanted, and then went to London to record the taiko with these two incredible Japanese taiko players, Yoji and Eddie. And they turned up on the day of recording in this massive van just filled with drums. And we all helped to carry them up like 3 flights of stairs into the studio. And it was just kind of like Christmas. There were just drums everywhere. And Eddie and Joji would go through and play, demonstrate all of the drums for us. And then we'd try things out. And then Joji would sort of suggest some things. He got a couple of violin bows out and started bowing these temple bowls. And there were a couple of cymbals that we used. One especially that he bought that was really large, and if you just hit it, it just rang for so long. It was like this eternal ring. You just hit it once, and then you can go and watch the entire sort of original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then come back, and it would still be sort of ringing. So,
wow, I love that. I'd like to zero in on my favorite musical moment. And I don't know how you did it, but I really don't know how you did it, except you were paying, and this must have been in close consultation with Kamiyama-san, but the emotional moment that really hit me hardest was after the burning of Edoras, and Hera has taken her father, and they've made a quick escape. Sorry, rest in peace, her brother, Haleth.
Yeah.
But Hama, he can't make it.
Yeah.
His horse slows down, and I felt so bad for the huffing and puffing of that beast, knowing, but this character almost resigns himself to his fate, and you hit those chords when he was just trying to comfort the animal. And he gets off the animal. He turns, and there's Wolf and Commander Targ coming right at him. But you did this progression with these chords that told the audience, and it told me in the strongest possible terms, that he's not getting out of this, and he knows he's not getting out of this. And you so elegantly put those chords together. You best musical moment for me. Aside from the fact that we'll talk about the songs later. I really want to get to that much later. But that moment where he turns to face what he knows is his doom, and he cocks an arrow, and he's slow, and just the way you handled that music. How did you get there when you weren't even close to seeing the finished animation yet? How did you manage that kind of nuance? I loved it. It was the best. It was the best.
Clifford, thank you so much. That means a great deal. Thank you. We've really worked hard on that scene, and I can't remember how many times I think I wrote it 3 times, and I think I remember the very first time I wrote something for it, and you're right, the animation wasn't quite there, and Kamiyama-san, we went back and forth on it, and he sort of said the same thing. He's like, he's resigned to his fate. We don't know yet if he's going to die or not, but if the way that you've handled this is basically, it's telling us too much that he's not going to make it. And I think maybe you should treat it like there's a little bit of ambiguity, just a little bit, but also there's also like this resigned to the fate, like it's just, this is how it's going to play out. Of course, no no anger, no remorse, just acceptance. And I think it took three sort of attempts to get it to the way it is now. And it was just Kamiyama-san's encouragement, saying, there's a quiet strength in Hammer.
Yes.
But also there's a little hint of the song that he sings in the beginning of the film that's threaded through that moment as well. And when he says maybe one day they'll sing songs of me, this is kind of the sort of the I guess the sort of moment where that sort of comes to realize, comes to fruition, in the sense that in order for people to sing songs of him, he might not be alive anymore, if that makes sense. So it just took a couple of iterations to get the tone right. I'm so glad you like it, though, because I did was very happy with
you nailed it. You nailed it. It was the perfect moment of storytelling being augmented by the music, and it was in a distinctly Howard Shore kind of way, but it was more so the way you chose those chords, and it really hit me. I've seen the movie
amazing.
4 times. It hits me
amazing.
every single time. It hits me, and of course, when Helm is lying there, and we hear the familiar singing of the lament that we remember Eowyn singing in the Two Towers, you broke me to pieces. You broke me at that point.
I was privileged to be in the studio when Lorraine was recording that in London.
Wow. Mind-blowing, huh?
Yeah,
well, let's talk about your soloists. This is interesting because I think that there might be some departure in the way that Howard frequently pulled in, boy soprano soloists and used them as in all these distinct places. But I noticed, except for Hama having his song, I noticed that there was not as many uses of solo vocalists. Was that a conscious choice on yours to depart from some of that?
To some degree, yes, it was. We wanted to imbue this film with its own. As well as paying tribute to Howard's, incredible music, and incredible legacy, we wanted to make sure that the music served primarily the film that we were working on, and the world that we were seeing. And to that end, Clifford, we sort of wanted to imbue a slightly different vocal quality throughout the score, and we had I to start off with, I was doing all of the vocal singing as a guide, just going, okay, I'm not a voice soprano, but I'm gonna sing the lines, and then we'll get it replaced by people who can sing. And we found this remarkable soloist, Barbara Patterson, here in Wellington, who's just I went to a concert that she was performing at, and she performed I can't remember what the piece was called, but it was it's the French composer, recently passed away. The name will come back to me. Anyway, it was one of her early works, and Sarioho. Anyway, I was watching her perform this, and it was just like, I was sitting like maybe 2 meters away from her when she was singing, and I was like, wow, this entire performance is incredible. Like, there's a whole lot of extended technique here that's really difficult. Barbara's just like nailing this, and her tone is so incredible. I feel really privileged that we were able to she's very busy, to get her in and record with her on a couple of occasions. And as soon as we heard her soloistic sort of voice, just felt like it belonged in the world. It felt true to what we were seeing on screen, and it felt sort of like it was building into the legacy of Howard Shore, but also sort of doing it in our own kind of way that would serve Kamiyama's film. There is actually still some of me in the film, but
that's an Easter egg. We'll let the fans find that one.
Yeah.
Now I got to go back and watch it a fifth time so I can
when
hear
you hear when you hear the out of tune horrible squawking, you'll be like, oh, that's what he was talking about. It's no, there's one part.
The chat room wants you to talk a little bit more about having the Tudor concert choir turn around and face the back of the hall.
Cool.
For the Helm Hammerhand still stands.
Yeah.
Wow, like our fans are deep. I asked for deep questions, and I told you we'd put you on the spotlight.
This is amazing. Thank you, everybody.
That's a good one.
So, okay, we worked with the Tudor Consort Choir here in Wellington, a fantastic sort of ensemble of voices. And you'd see them in concert, and we asked them, and we weren't sure that they were going to be able to be a part of the score because they're busy with concerts, etc. And they made it happen, and I'm so thankful to them. This cue, which is on the soundtrack, it's called Helm Hammerhand Still Stands. And it's probably my favorite, the one if I had to have a favorite, I think this is my favorite cue. This is the point where Helm is saying, goodbye to Hedda, and sort of there's a whole lot of things about the relationship that sort of alter here. And I think Helm we sort of see inside him a little bit. He lets kind of the warrior his guard down a little bit, and you just see that sort of father looking at a daughter, a parent just looking at their child going, I know you've got this, you can do this, I see you, and our people are in the right hands, and they're in the right hands because you're going to lead them. Helm's last stand, we have a choir, a series of sort of like the choir kind of moving up. This is the last time we see Helm, and he's such a sort of an elegant, majestic character. And I wanted the music to, his will unbroken, his knees unbent is the voiceover that follows when we see the aftermath of that battle. And I wanted the music to reflect that idea, like unbroken will, unbent knees. And I didn't want the music to feel like it was defeated or feel like it's a tragedy. I wanted it to be, this is the last stand of someone who is mighty, powerful, and hasn't broken, if that makes sense. So, but at the same time, I wanted to acknowledge that, this is actually a pretty emotional moment, and we're seeing the last stand of somebody who we've gone through the film with so far. So there's this amazing choir bit where the choir was sort of singing, and we wanted the sound of the choir to somehow, it's going to sound strange, somehow to invert. So the quality of the choir sound, we wanted it to change, but we didn't want to lose the density of the sound, if that makes sense. So, and we wanted that to sort of acknowledge the emotional turning point here. It's like it's a big part in the film. And so we thought an elegant solution would be if we turned the choir, like the choir is singing at the back of the hall, into the hall where all of our microphones are placed. And we thought if we turn the choir around, so that instead of facing out into the hall where the microphones are, they're facing to the back of the hall. And this is kind of this raised sort of diocese in this little chapel on the hill by the sea where we recorded most things. They all faced towards the wall and sung at the same intensity that they were earlier in the cue. But because of, the human head and the now sort of being a natural kind of filter, so the backs of their heads are facing the microphone. So it's almost like a low pass filter has now sort of been engaged on the sound. And the voices are basically being directly channeled at this reflective hard surface. So the mics are now really just picking up the reflection and a kind of a low passed, low passed kind of quality of the voices. We just felt like the density is the same, but there's definitely a tonal shift and therefore an emotional shift when the choir do that. And I thought it would be, we thought it would be kind of a subtle effect, but one that would allow us to not lose the intensity of the score, but somehow just change it so that they're to sort of match as the camera sort of pulls out and the snow sort of blinds us. As we lose sight of Helm, the quality of the quiet changes, and it's gone from Helm being a living entity to him sort of passing over into to sort of go with his forefathers, really. Sorry, that's kind of a vague overview.
No, but you've immediately reminded me of the technique that they used in the earliest concert performances of the Planets, because they had a hidden chorus of all female voices off stage, and they, at the very end, the very final planet, which I believe is Neptune the Mystic, and Gustav Holst had them slowly closing the stage doors behind. The audience is listening to the infinite sound of these lifting voices, and they slowly close the stage doors while the ladies are still singing. And that technique you just described reminds me quite suddenly of that.
So the same sort of sonic kind of quality you've been hearing and keyed into in that cue just changes a little bit. But it's audio that has, it has meaning, and it's sort of, it felt like a appropriate musical and sort of sonic way to pay respect to this character that who was fighting this army, fighting for his people, and it's sort of a fitting goodbye to him. I'm so glad that you asked that question, because I really, man, I love that. I have
a dumb question. Why not do that in post? Why do that live? Why not?
That's a really good question. It's a very good question. And the reason is because I don't think. Well, actually, I mean, there's two reasons, really. Reason number one is that doing it in post would probably take longer than it would to just sort of, ask
just
people
tell
to
everybody turn around.
Yeah, and secondly, we did it as we didn't know that it was going to work. We just did it because everyone was there, and we were like, this might work or it might be a disaster, but if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be research. So we had a modicum of time where we could experiment with things like that. And after we heard the initial, when we asked everyone to turn around and sing, and we heard the results, we were like, oh, this is extraordinary. So it sort of came out of the recording process, and just sort of on the fly, and through sort of experimentation. So one could do it in post, but we just wanted to try it out on the stage.
In terms of getting your music together with the orchestra, how much time did the orchestra players have to work with the music before they went into the recording sessions? I mean, did they get to rehearse a couple of days? No. You're kidding.
No.
Right there. Here's the music. Play it. Here we go.
Professionals, Cliff.
I know they're professionals, but heavens to Murgatroyd. That's amazing. A testament to their skill.
Oh really. Yeah, we were absolutely. I mean, we're absolutely blessed to work with some just remarkable musicians, and every single musician we had the privilege of recording, deeply patient and just so generous with their knowledge and with their goodwill.
Fascinating.
Are there any studio tricks, like telling people to turn around? Are there any studio tricks that you saw Howard Shore employ, or who did the orchestrations on Hobbit? Was that Conrad?
Oh, Conrad Poe. Poe. There were a few that I saw Conrad do firsthand, because I mean, Conrad is amazing. He's absolutely jaw-dropping. And largely that was just with Conrad. There's there's a couple of things that I heard him do, and then I looked through his orchestrations, and I was like, oh, some of his instrumental choices, and some of the way that he especially used bass clarinet. His use of bass clarinet through the second and third films in The Hobbit is really cool. It's really, really beautiful. And it may sound like a small thing, but I've never really sort of seen it used as almost like a shading device, a shading tool. You know, when you're drawing and you want sort of a shade under a particular line. Yeah, he's a remarkable orchestrator. And the second thing I saw him do, which I probably never, I mean, I didn't get to do because I'm not a conductor, but the NZSO, when he came down to record with them, it was really quite wonderful to sort of see his first day with the NZSO, not having ever worked with them before. But he stepped up and he greeted them and just said, you know, I really liked your recording of I can't remember the piece it was. I think it was it might have been a Gershwin piece, I'm not sure. But you could immediately see like the orchestra going, oh, we love him. and I've been on a couple of stages where he's conducted before, and it's always a privilege because he's got this amazing talent to start telling the orchestra a story in between takes, and it's almost like a long joke, and he can stretch it out for like, you know, an entire 3 hours in between sort of takes, and he's just so charming and so wonderful and so smart. So that's the other thing. I've never really seen a conductor engage with an orchestra like that before, and really make it a kind of a wonderful sort of family experience. So that's the other thing, you know, and maybe that's sort of outside the musical side of things, but I'd say it's equally important because the performances that he got out of the orchestra are just so great, and he's just such a, I guess what I'm trying to say, he was just such a wonderful human and such a wonderful collaborator. And to see him demonstrate that in a room full of 100 people on a daily basis was so impressive. He was so unstoppable, unfatigable. Yeah, he was just
infatigable.
Yes,
what
entirely
infatigable.
Wonderful,
wonderful
human
that's
being.
so great to hear. There's nothing better than getting along very, very well with your cohorts in music.
Yeah.
You know, if you can get along really, really well with your conductor and with your fellow musicians, it makes the entire experience so different. Now, let me ask you real quick.
I wanted to touch on the bass clarinet.
You want to ask something real quick?
Yeah, well,
okay.
You mentioned the bass clarinet.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know they came in bass. I know there's an alto clarinet, but I didn't know they came in the bass version. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, some people in our Discord clued into that listening to the soundtrack of Rohirrim over and over again, and the question, as a former bass clarinet player, wasn't often that the bass section got to play the cool bits or solos. So, what is The Hobbit? What inspired you to give some of the bass woodwinds some of that?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Primarily just because seeing it and hearing it through Conrad's orchestrations and over the second and third film was kind of like a revelation. It was like, oh wow, that's sort of opened the door to what this instrument can do and the quality of this instrument. And we've got, man, the wind section that we were privileged to record in New Zealand is so great, and they've got such great players that it was, yeah, like a really deep privilege being able to write for them and to hear it being played back. So
and I feel like Dune is doing a lot with bass. Like the whole score is kind of at the low end, especially on Dune 2.
Oh, 2, yeah.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
I really, really
And
like
it's
Mr.
shocking
Zimmer...
that they disqualified it from Oscar contention.
I think so too. I think it's really
well. And Cliff, you brought up last week that Howard Shore was almost disqualified for Two Towers.
And then there was a ruckus, and then they changed the rules so that he wouldn't be disqualified. That is how it went down. He was eligible.
Okay. Yeah.
He still didn't get nominated for the second film.
Mm.
Howard was only nominated and won for movie 1 and movie 3
Yeah.
in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy.
So if Rohirrim gets nominated for an Oscar, it'll be the first Rohan movie that got a nomination.
Whoa. That's
Watch
crazy,
out.
isn't it? Because like the Two Towers is so good. How
Two
can it
Towers
not be
is my
nominated?
favorite score, from Foundations of Stone to introducing like double the score. And the themes,
Yep.
you got the Ent themes, you got the Rohan themes.
Mhm.
He introduces so much more music.
Talk about obscure woodwind instruments in the Treebeard Fate-Worn
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Really obscure woodwinds. All that woodsy wood stuff, because it's
Yeah.
woodsy. But
Yeah.
now let me ask you real quick,
Sure.
before it runs away from me. There's it just ran away from me.
No,
Justin,
that's
you
okay.
go.
No problem.
It'll come back to me. It will come back to me. But there's
All right, we got more questions from
it will
the
come
chat
back
room.
to me.
Aside
One
from
second.
Rohan and ring motifs, you were able to incorporate and the
Oh.
use of Hardinger
Harding.
fiddle. Were there any other things from Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings score that you used for inspiration? And were there things that you were told, that's off limits?
Okay, that's a great question. So I was told nothing was off limits, which was
Okay.
amazing. We did have to ask for permission on each thing that each
Sure, because he
motif
has
that we used.
publishing still on
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely, yeah.
Good contract
to make
negotiator,
sure,
that guy.
100%, right?
Yeah.
But we wanted to make sure that we were using his music respectfully as well. We didn't want to sort of just use it as a crutch, because we wanted to use it in the places where it felt true to the story. And in terms of like, was there other things that inspired me? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like the tenets of our musical world were basically all in the DNA of the score to the original trilogy. And I mean, something as, potentially, I don't want to say it's prosaic, but it might be not, might be not the first thing that people think of, is just some of the ways that the harmony is voiced in the orchestra. Those kind of like first and second inversion arrangements of harmony that are so sort of, they just feel kind of instantly Lord of the Rings. Like those, those things are big influences. Those musical decisions that Howard made, we've used as inspiration. His use of color. I mean, obviously we've talked about that. But also, I think, again, it might be sort of self-evident, but his motivic writing and the way things connect and the way things unravel and become variations and then link to other things. I guess really what I'm talking about is his storytelling. His storytelling through music, I think, that's probably a more succinct way to put it. That was really inspirational as well, sort of connecting things, connecting families, connecting cultures through musical ideas inherent in the score. So those were the big inspirations, really.
Well, let me follow up with this. Let me follow up real quick, because I remembered the question. We don't have to do dwarven culture, so we don't need to do dwarven voices.
Exactly.
And you don't have to do elven culture. They don't show up.
100%.
So,
yeah.
Did you find that limiting or more liberating? Did you find that liberating that you could focus on mortal men and the music of their culture instead of having to juggle a lot of others?
I think so. Yes, absolutely. Liberating in the sense that the scope was not so vast, as we weren't covering, as you say, a lot of those cultures in Middle-earth. We were really just focusing on Rohirrim and Dunlending cultures. So that was pretty liberating, because it meant we could take a little bit of a deeper approach to scoring for aspects of the culture that we hadn't seen before, emotional situations that we hadn't really encountered before, sequences that sort of were kind of an extension of the idea of the Rohan culture. It was liberating. I think it would have been quite a different story if we'd had the as you say, the sort of the vastness of dwarves and elves and um, the other characters, cultures that inhabit Middle Earth, that would have been that would have been pretty daunting to,
Too much. I mean,
yeah.
hello, I don't have to write Nazgul music today. That's fine by me.
That's cool. I mean,
I'll
as
just
cool as that is, though, as cool
Yeah,
as
it
that
is.
that's
It is.
It's
yeah.
testament to
Well,
Shore's genius, though, that he
yeah,
he
100%.
did all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
true.
exactly. Do you know what
Well,
I just thought? The Two Towers wasn't eligible for an Oscar. Do you remember the piece of music when Theoden rides out and sees Gandalf on the top of the ridge? And that piece of music's amazing. How could that not be eligible for like the?
makes you wonder. It does
Oh my
make you
goodness.
wonder.
And,
Yeah,
and, and so
okay.
and so the rule that they put in place because of the Two Towers controversy had like a 20-year, like we'll implement this in 20 years, and that kicked in this year, and that's the rule that disqualifies Dune.
No
That's
way.
what disqualified
So
Mr.
Lord of the
Zimmer.
Rings
Exactly.
is literally affecting Dune too, and Hans Zimmer in his interviews has been like, "But Lord of the Rings."
He's so pissed. I understand
I can
why.
understand. Yeah. Dune
Yeah.
2 is fantastic. It's a great score. It's
Um,
actually, I remember the first time I heard the Dune score, and I was starting work on the second Avatar movie, and I'd gotten the album to use in the temp score, and I
Yeah.
was just sitting there listening, and I hadn't seen the movie, and I was listening to the score, and I was like, I don't really understand this at all. Like, I don't get it. I don't know. And then I watched the movie, and then I was like, oh, this is actually genius. It actually all makes sense now. What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever have that where something outside of its outside of its context, when you first are exposed to it, you don't have the pillars of understanding about why this thing is what it is and how it operates, and then once you get it, you're like, oh, genius.
Well, was there any
I was just a little-
pressure with Rohirrim about that? Like, because let's be honest, Warner's made a ton of money. Everybody made a ton of money off the soundtracks, standalone soundtrack sales, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
was there a thought of like this has to stand alone as its own music in addition to supporting the movie?
No one ever put that pressure on us, which I was quite glad of.
mm,
We made we suggested that we requested that they release it on vinyl because we were like, well, you know, basically when we went to Tokyo to see Kamiyama-san, and he gave us a Blade Runner, a copy of his Blade Runner soundtrack on vinyl. I was like,
oh, wow.
this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And
Yes.
that's the reason we asked for the soundtrack to be released on vinyl. And
Did
also
you meet
because
with the Made by Mutant guys,
we did, we met over not in person, but over Zoom, and they're so lovely, and I'm so thrilled they're doing this.
You know, Elijah Wood is a co-founder of Made by Mutant.
Yes,
Yes.
Like Frodo
How
was
cool is that?
producing the vinyl.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
unreal.
It
It's
is
unreal.
really cool.
And basically, I realized like a lot of my education has come from reading liner notes and CDs and cassettes and vinyl. And we wanted to put the music out into the world. We wanted to put everything that we recorded. We wanted to release because it seemed to sort of make sense in in terms of not having any length limit in streaming services. But also, do you remember when the complete recordings came out for the Lord of the Rings films? And there was like, all of a sudden 13 hours of music across the three films that you could just listen to. Like, I remember that, and I just remember going, this is incredible. Like, you can just get into the world and listen through to everything. And we sort of wanted to make sure that we put out everything that we recorded, whether it's in the film or not, because
Nice.
we wanted people to have access to everything. And look, we realize that there are people out there who probably don't want to listen to, everything, but we thought it would be better to have it out there than to keep anything back, if that makes sense.
Did you read Doug Adams' book, The Music of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, that's the first thing on my first week of working on The Hobbit, the first pay packet I received, I went and bought that book. It had just come out. and it's kind of very rarely left my side since
It's
2010.
invaluable.
Yeah,
Invaluable.
it's fantastic.
Someone in the
Great
chat room
puzzle.
wants to know:
It's great.
Is there enough music already recorded for an extended edition War of the Rohirrim?
Yeah, it's probably if they decide to make it, there's probably enough music recorded.
He can't say
Yes,
anything more.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's probably enough. Yeah. We did. I think
It's animation. They only make what's drawn.
that's the thing. They sort of only do. They only had time to do that. But we did record
Right.
more music than is currently used in the film. So yeah.
Amazing. This is really now let's get to the songs.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
The song that Hama sings in the stable is re-recorded with another vocalist over the end credits.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the transformation of that song to that new form?
Sure. Okay. Well, actually, the person who sings it in over the credits is a vocalist for a New Zealand band called Drax Project, and he's a friend of the scriptwriters Phoebe Gittins and Adi Papagiorgio.
Yes.
And he actually sung the original demo of the song that Hama sings. So the first time that so Phoebe, I think Phoebe wrote that song, got him to Ben to record a demo of it, and she brought it in. I think early when we started working on the score, she brought that in, and it was immediately like, oh, this is great. This is a beautiful track. And something
it really is. It
really is. It's so
it
lovely.
really is. Yeah.
And she worked in the ADR recordings with Hammer on that, and I also took, some of the melody and threaded it through the story to follow sort of Hammer's journey, and then every time Hammer's mentioned or you see his harp or lyre, there's a little callback of that.
Cool.
And that's my voice singing the Hammer melody, as Hera is like sitting inside the ramparts, with her head down, and Leaf comes up and goes, "My lady, you're needed, my lady." And then the camera comes down over Hammer's body below the ramparts.
Yeah.
And yeah, we reprise Hammer's theme. So yeah, that's Phoebe's composition. And
where
she
did
let me,
Paris Paloma come in?
Paris Paloma. I'm not sure at what point they reached out to Paris, but I'd heard her singing. There's a video on YouTube of her performing at the Tate, Britain.
Yeah.
And that's great. And so I think Phoebe and Adi found Paris, and they were really excited to work with her. And I met her for the first time at the premiere, which was amazing. It was pretty awkward, but it was pretty good. Like we walked into the Odeon at Leicester Square, and I had someone from Warner Brothers was looking after myself and my son, and she turns it, like the woman looking after us, whose name was Michaela. Michaela turns around and says, "There's somebody sitting in your seat, and I'm not going to ask them to move because it's Stephen Fry."
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh, that's fine. He can. Don't ask him to move. We'll sit anywhere. I don't mind. I'll sit on the stairs. I don't care." And then,
my Lord!
And then they're like, "No. We'll ask him to move. We'll ask him to move. It's fine. We'll take care of it." And we're like, We're not stressed. It's fine. And then Stephen Fry stands up, and I think he sees one of his friends in the further down the row. So he stands up, walks down, and starts talking to his friend. And Michaela says, "Oh, you should just go and sit in the seat, and I'll talk to Stephen." I was like, that feels really weird because I can see his
Yeah.
phone and his bag is still there. And if I sit in the seat,
Oh my
that's
God.
awkward. She's like, don't worry about it. Just go. I'll take care of it. And I was like, okay. So I sit down very gingerly in the seat previously occupied by Stephen Fry. And the woman next to me turns and says, you're sitting in Stephen's seat. And I was like, yeah, I am a Stephen. I'm not that Stephen, but this is the seat that I'm supposed to be sitting in.
Oh God.
And then I turn around and I see Stephen Fry coming back. And I was like, oh, is this going to be really awkward because his phone and his bag are here?
Oh God.
He's going to be angry. And then he sort of came over and he sort of bent down and he said, excuse me. I was like, yeah. He's like, I think I was sitting in the wrong seat. My seat's a row in front. May I take my bag and my phone? I was like, yes, please, take your bag. By the way, I love your coat. And then that sort of he goes and takes a seat and I sit down. I'm like, oh, phew. And the woman sitting next to me turns around and she says, oh, that was actually probably good timing because I named my album after one of the chapters in Stephen Fry's book. And that's how I opened the conversation when he was sitting next to me. And the conversation petered out pretty quickly, and then it just got really, really awkward. So it's kind of worked out well. And that the woman turned out to be Paris Paloma. I'd never met her before. And,
Oh my God!
Yeah,
No way!
Yeah. And
No way!
and she's super cool. She's really like lovely, and it's
This
it's
is
pretty wild. So, but have you ever met someone and you think you've heard them sing and then you hear them speak and you're like, where does this voice come from? Like, where does it,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't feel like you're putting it on. It feels real, but it just feels like the person I'm speaking to now and the voice I'm hearing on the screen feel like different parts of you. And yeah, but no, she also came to New Zealand for the premiere and just really super cool person, and what a voice. And I think she did a pretty incredible job on that song.
She was just the perfect voice.
Yeah.
For
Agreed. Amazing.
Every single
That is
Lord
a
of the
great
Rings-
story, by the way, Stephen. That is a great.
Yeah.
The live chat is blowing up right now with people saying, "What? Really?" It's like somebody said, "Is this an episode of Friends or Seinfeld?" That's because you're skirting into that territory. It was a great story.
It got
really
pretty
good.
Seinfeld.
I'm actually
felt pretty
curious
Seinfeld.
because I've always wanted to ask Howard Shore this, but now I can ask you. All the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films have had incredible singers for their big, score their big song. A lot of them won Grammys. They won Oscars. You had Ed Sheeran, you had Annie Lennox. I mean, just Enya. Yeah. So, as the composer, is that also in your head? Did you have a short list of singers that you thought are appropriate or voices or style of voices?
We had the discussion, and initially Phoebe and Artie were working with a singer called Aniko, who you should look up. She is incredible. Like, her voice is unbelievable. And Aniko came down to New Zealand to record a demo of a completely different song. And it's great. And I highly recommend going and listening to Aniko's music. She's active on YouTube. Her voice is otherworldly. She's an incredible artist, an incredible singer, and it sort of didn't work out in the final film. But when people ask me who I would like, I think I had quite unrealistic. I think my first. Who should I ask? Oh, I think it was Caroline Polachek was the singer I thought would have been a good fit. So yeah, they did ask.
So it was always a girl. It was always a woman.
I think so.
I mean, the Shield. It's called
By the
Shield
time
Maiden
by
show,
the
right? Like,
But
yeah.
well, by the time I was included in the conversation, it was. I'm not sure if it always
Yeah.
had been.
You're familiar with the original story that Bjork was going to sing
Two
Gollum's
Towers.
song.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
But she was too close to labor and having her
Yes.
child. And
Yes.
they were just like, shit, we need to find someone new
Yeah,
who has
100%.
that strange
Yeah.
Icelandic voice. And so they brought in what's her name? Torini.
Emiliana? Is it Emiliana?
Emiliana Torini.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
Emiliana
yeah,
Torini.
yeah, yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's a cool song. My favorite one, I have to say, if it comes down to it, my favorite song is probably Enya, because I feel like as soon as I heard that, it felt like so true to the world. It felt like it absolutely belonged in the universe. Plus, I'm a big Enya fan, so yeah.
Me too. Well,
I mean, yeah.
you know what? When people on the internet say, live your best life, like Enya, go live in a magical castle and
Surrounded by
write songs in
synthesizers, yeah.
Elvish all
Yeah,
damn day.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. I will do that.
Yeah,
I'll
I
live
would
my
love to do
best
that.
Enya life, right?
I would love to do that. Surrounded by synthesizers. Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, I might be old school, but I remember Clannad, her
Oh
band,
yeah.
her original band, and Ridley Scott was using their music way before, in the before times, using Clannad. And then she went solo and became one of the most famous and recognizable solo artist of the decade, probably could. Now, let me just think about my next question, because I had so many piled up, my brain waves can't keep. I should have written them down. If you could,
Jordan in the chat room, if you guys got more questions, please post them.
You guys.
I've got one right now. The movie opens with the classic Lord of the Rings title and theme and goes right into the Rohan theme. Is there temptation to put your own spin on those iconic scores, or those motifs, or are they untouchable, or do you choose different instruments? What goes?
But he did.
Yeah,
he did.
yeah.
Don't you remember those wood blocks where you pulled away from the sound of the theme and went?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so sweet. That's the kind of orchestration I live for that stuff.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
I live for that. That's great.
That's awesome. I mean, thank you. I mean, that's a great question, Justin. And the answer is for the Ring theme and for the Rohan theme, we re-recorded them and sort of, I mean, we didn't want to mess with them too much at all, really. We just wanted them to be as they were intended, because really at that stage in the film, it's like a welcome back to the world. And while the opening is sort of peppered with kind of instrumentation that we hadn't heard in the original trilogy, the bulk of the statement of those themes is sort of, much like you would expect in the original trilogy, and that was on purpose, because A, they're so great. Why do you want to mess with them? And B, it's also sort of like opening the door and just saying, "Wait, welcome back to Middle-earth." If that makes sense.
Jordan is asking, is there a theme that you didn't have a chance to use from LOTR, since we are mainly Rohirric, that you would have loved to explore?
That's a good question.
That is a good question, Jordan. Yeah.
Yes. You know what? I mean, I didn't get a chance to sort of explore any of the Hobbit/Shire material. I really deeply love that music, and I think it's really idiosyncratic and
is it
charming.
The instruments from the Shire that really attract you, or
it's both the instruments, but also it's also the music. That's also what they're playing. I find it really, really deeply charming.
Very.
But again, at the same point, it would have felt very weird putting that into War of the Rohirrim, if that makes sense.
Suddenly, Billy and Dom are doing the voice of orcs, and then you bring in Shire. You bring in Concerning Hobbits, right when they're like, they can smell you all the way from Mount Doom.
I wish we'd thought of that.
Do you know what?
That's great.
There was something really that grossed me out because I didn't notice it the first two times. Third time I saw the movie, I noticed that they're eating the corpses, and he's
Yeah.
eating
Yeah,
the
that's right.
hands
Yeah.
and taking
Yeah.
the ring out of his
Yeah.
mouth after eating.
That's right.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
that's right.
God, it's so
Yeah.
perfectly ghoulish.
Yeah, it's
Perfectly
good.
ghoulish. It's
Yes,
really
it
good.
absolutely is. I think they dialed back on a little bit of the gore. I think things were a little more gory at some point, but some of those
Really?
more gory things got
Well,
dialed down, taken out.
it's also fascinating that the snow troll was obviously eating a lot of the cadavers of the Dunlendings, and they were so terrified of Helm, they were putting
couldn't.
extra blame on Helm. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that
Yeah.
increased the fear of
Yeah.
him.
100%, and that makes it like when they think they see him return with an army
Yeah,
on the top of the hill. That's why a lot
Yeah.
of the reason why they're like,
We're
we're
outta
getting
here.
out of here. Yeah, exactly.
I love the big reveal by moonlight because
Yeah, me too.
in the original film, it's
Yeah.
the light of day breaking.
Yes.
Beautiful,
Yes.
bright
Yes.
sunlight. But
Yes.
you got a chance
Yes.
to score. This is going to be like list moonlight. And
Yeah,
I
that's
talked to
Yeah.
Kenji Kamiyama a little bit about that. Did you feel like there's a big battle outside of Edoras under the stars? There's this big closing moment where we're under the moonlight. Do those conditions influence the way you want to write? Because
Yes, absolutely.
that's
100%.
fascinating to me.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, really, we're as composers, our job is to sort of be open to information that we're being told from our directors and our collaborators, but also all the visual information, the visual stimulus that we see unfolding in front of us. So that can be of dialogue, can be body language, but environment and time of day, and just how wonderfully exciting and stunning that shot is when the eagle flies by, and then there's the revealed like Freyleth and the rest of the army. But wow, that huge move, it's such a beautiful cinematic moment, and a moment of where the tide turns for the Rohirrim. So yeah, all of those things. And there's something about the dawn is sort of slowly coming up and slowly breaking, and it feels like a very vibrant last ditch, yet sort of almost celebratory kind of moment in the film. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's and I have to say, looking at as the animation was finished and you'd see different sequences kind of complete, there were just moments where you play it back and you just sort of gasp, like Meduseld in the early part of the film, Meduseld under the stars. I just remember when I first saw that, I was like, oh my God.
It is the most breathtaking,
so beautiful
backgrounds I've seen in years.
Yeah,
so breathtaking, gorgeous background.
Was it? We hear
Wow.
that tons of wonderful artists worked on the visual look of the film. They talk about Alan Lee and John Howe and the Weta Workshop artists doing some paintings and sketches, designing the film, and obviously like you're already working on the music while animation's going. So did the artwork of guys like John Howe, Alan Lee, and the Weta Workshop team, did that provide more inspiration? Like, did you work harder at the music when you saw Alan Lee's work versus like some storyboards?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just sort of because it was reassuring in a way, because you're like, oh, I know the world. I know this. I know. When you see sort of artwork referencing Alan Lee, it's just like I feel like I kind of understand the world that we're in. The world, even though it's an anime, it's a different medium, but the design aesthetics are still inherently the same. If that makes sense? So it was kind of like a reassuring visual.
Did you get any pressure, internal pressure, like, wow, I have to step up my game because John Howe is at his game?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Every day there was all of that. Wow. All of that wrestling with self-doubt and and just every day, it was a question of like, is this right? Is this good enough? Does it fit the world? Is it true to the world? Is it true to the film? Is it true to what we're seeing?
Jordan's back with another technical question.
Yeah.
How do you actually tempo map a scene? Is that done in Pro Tools? Is it fluid?
It's a good question. I do basically when I tempo map, a lot of the time I just play into the DAW, play against what I'm seeing, and then once I'm sort of happy with bits, I go back and set the tempo after I've played into the DAW against the picture. So I sort of play in first and then go back and map the tempo afterwards.
And were you mapping to? You had most of the vocal performances from the actors already, right? So they had voiceovers to story.
Yeah, I had guides. I had like sort of like a kind of a sparse selection of dialogue that sort of got slowly more and more kind of complete. So I didn't always have the finished dialogue in lots of scenes.
Yeah. Paul wants to know when you have worked out the emotion you want in a piece, does music theory help you get there?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it does. It does help, and that can be honestly anything from as fundamental as like, is it major, is it minor, and through to wanting to sort of generate something that kind of like the siege tower falling, wanting something a little bit more complex in terms of harmonic vocabulary to express the kind of the horror of this object falling. So yeah, theory is something that hopefully, and I'm not an expert on theory, but hopefully is sort of it's becomes second nature. It's sort of like you don't necessarily think of the architecture of a language that you speak. You simply speak it. I'm not sort of stopping to go, am I using a noun here or a verb here or a conjunction here? But the theory is you're aware of it and it's going on in the background. And there's often things that like in this film I did have to stop. I mean, there were moments where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to do this. What is the approach to, for example, the final fight between Hera and Wolf? That was like kind of the theory of that was basically like Hera's tonal center, her harmonic center, her melody, and Wolf's tonal center and his coloration of his melody. He's trying to dominate her. So basically I superimposed his harmonic center and his melodic and his musical qualities on top of Hera's. And for a while that sort of it looks like that's gonna, basically wipe her musical center, her harmony, her musical world out. And then she rallies and her harmonic center pulls back and dominates his. So it's basically clashes of these two sort of musical identities. And then she's triumphant. Well, when I say triumphant, she wins the battle. But it's not really triumph. It's like, wow. It's victory in a sense that she's still alive and he's not. But she's just killed someone who used to be a friend, and also someone who killed. She still lost most of her family because of this guy, and that's someplace where theory can help you. It's like, well, how do you express that with our main tenets of music being major and minor? It's the sort of the third of if you want to go down to root harmony, it's the third of the chord that generally defines whether a chord is major happy or minor sad. But if you take that out, it's ambiguous, right? And so when Hera is triumphant is the wrong word. When Hera kills Wolf and she stands back instead of a rousing victory, it's hollow. Like there's no, it's the harmony is ambiguous, and it's almost like sort of a pencil sketch of what her music was. It's kind of sadness mixed with relief, but it's sadness really. But still, I didn't want it to be in any way triumphant or in any way sort of like yay, victory. It was like it was deeply kind of disturbing and hollow. So yeah, those sort of things you do sort of rely on kind of musical theory to sort of help you express those emotional qualities.
What comes
that
first?
Answers the question.
Melody or harmony?
Different things come first depending on where we are. But for writing Hera's theme, melody came first. Absolutely, yeah. And for most of the themes, in fact, all of the themes, I can't really think of anything that came after harmony. I started in this film, all melody, and then worked out the harmonic sort of context afterwards. And I wanted a melody that could work for each of the characters in different sort of harmonic contexts, depending on where we were in the film.
The chat room is
That's
like
fascinating.
saying they are blown away by you taking the time to explain this.
Oh, kidding me? It's a privilege to do it. Thank you so much for your patience.
I'm absolutely loving this. I'm loving this conversation, and I love your music.
Thank you.
It's so good. It's so very,
you.
very, very good.
Thank you so much.
I can see why Elijah's record company was immediately like, yes, we will release a vinyl version of this. I can understand the instant appeal.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you. Thank you.
One of the most famous stories in the history of animation, and the score composer Elmer Bernstein. Everyone remembers the great Elmer Bernstein. He wrote the score for The Black Cauldron for Disney in 1985.
Oh.
And famously, he was also doing Ghostbusters. Justin, as you well know, his music
I have
from
no idea where
Ghostbusters.
you're going with this story, but continue.
That's okay. You don't need to know where I'm going. You'll find out when we get there. The infamous moment happened where Katzenberg came in and took control of the animation studio. And he did not like what he saw. And he went into the editing room, locked himself in there, and started cutting scenes, lots of scenes out of The Black Cauldron, which caused this very abrupt interruption of some of the more important music cues. Because Bernstein had conducted them, they'd recorded them, the film was nearly complete, and there were animators running down the hallways in the Burbank studios screaming, "Don't do it, don't do it." And he locked himself in the editing room and infamously chopped the movie up. And I think like 12 minutes went out. But when you listen to the film today, because the process of animating a film and scoring it is really rather different than, doing live action.
Yes.
But they, if you watch the film today, you will notice very abrupt changes in the music that give away more than anything the unfortunate choices that he made.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that nothing like that happened to you. But I don't know if you could, or could you not? I mean, just illuminate for us.
Sure.
Did anybody walk in and say, "Shit, I know you've done this, you've recorded all this, but it has to go"? Did that happen?
It did. I mean, there were
dear.
bits. No, that's okay. That's part of our job. I mean, there were bits where it wasn't so much that has to go. It was sort of like, now that we have everything together, now that we have the completed animation and now we have the score, we had the opportunity to sort of look at different sections and go, is this really true to what the intent is here? And there were places where we felt like it would be better to try another direction. And so Part of the reason that we were lucky, we have we had an amazing music team. I'm so thankful to all of them. They're absolute geniuses and lovely people. For example, when Haleth is shot by Wolf, and all of the sound goes out, and there's just that sort of high ringing noise. That was a decision that we sort of made late. That was made late in the piece. So there was music all through that. And
Ooh.
Kamiyama-san was like, well, what happens if we take it all out and we just have like a surreal moment here, because we're like Hammerhand and Hera are watching their brother murdered, and then Hera watches his Helm is basically shot, multiple times with arrows. It's like it needs to sort of go into quite an intense emotional moment here. And so we pulled all the music out, and we just made that passage very surreal, which I think is quite a successful decision.
I would agree. It was a very successful. It was very successful.
Yeah,
it heightened the
so
emotion in a very strange and interesting way.
Yeah, and that's not something we thought about before we had all of the elements, and because that's part of our job. You want to make sure the director has all of the elements, and they can do as they want. Because some decisions it's very hard to make until you've got all of your sound and visual elements at your disposal. And there was another one. What was it? There was another. Oh yeah, there was a sequence, quite a few sequences that were cut up, and the order was changed. And I think it makes the film play better. But the music, we had to sort of edit it together to compensate for these editorial picture changes. So it did. I mean, the music definitely got in some places cut significantly and rearranged after it was recorded, but only really in a couple of places. Most of it is intact.
Okay, excellent.
Fans want to know if you have the little Eowyn statue.
That is so great, Stephen.
Did you see Rebecca Rovney's violin rendition of the Rogue?
Yeah, that was great. That was so cool. It was amazing. It was like, oh my goodness. Eowyn traveled everywhere. She was like the muse of the score.
And final question from the chat, because guys, we got to let him go. He's a busy man.
This has just been such a great convo. It's been so
what
great.
was the most intimidating part of the whole process? Was it the blank page at the beginning, or was it the final mix with Peter Jackson and Kamiyama-san and everybody in the room? And this work.
That's a great
what
question.
was the most intimidating part of this?
Excellent.
There's a couple of intimidating parts. So number one, the very first intimidating part was after the sort of excitement had sort of quelled somewhat after being asked to do the film, the dawning realization that you were writing something in the canon that had been established by one of the greatest film composers, ever. That's pretty intimidating, and to be honest, that took a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-doubt.
Oh my God, no!
That was pretty intimidating. So that was number one.
No.
Second intimidating thing, the most intimidating thing, was actually going to see the movie in Wellington with my daughter. My daughter is, she's the harshest critic that I have in my life, and she's excellent. She doesn't hold back. She's got no kind of, and I was
no filter in telling you, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much, right? And so
oh my God,
we took her to we went to the Wellington premiere with her, and she sat next to me, and I kept checking to see if she was still engaged in the film, and she was like, and then afterwards she was like, yeah, Dad, I thought that was really good. It's not a film I probably would have gone to if you weren't working on it, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And I was like, yes. And then the day after that, she said, "You know what? Whether I liked the film or not, I was actually going to say it was good just because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But I didn't have to pretend Dad actually really liked it." So yeah, that was huge. I mean, for me, that's a big deal because yeah, like there's next to my own internal critic, which is the harshest critic. My daughter's criticism, that's the harshest. So that's the one that was most intimidating, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's hard to put into words the how nervous I was sitting next to her, but she was very gracious.
The chat room wants to know.
Awesome. That is so awesome.
You would be interested in coming back on our show on a regular basis for Stephen's Music History Corner. And just talk shop with fellow nerds.
Yeah. Anytime. Yep.
Love that.
Up for it.
We can talk about our favorite composers anytime.
100%, anytime. Always up for it.
I would love that.
It has been such a privilege to talk with you both, and again to the entire One Ring community. I'm so grateful to you, and so thank you so much for your support and your patience. I do hope you enjoy the film, and like wherever you are at the moment, I hope you're doing well. I hope your friends and your family are doing okay, and I hope that you enjoy a great holiday season, however you celebrate it. Thank you, and Justin and Clifford, thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, the pleasure is all ours. I mean, we're.
Are you kidding?
We're in awe that you even said yes to talk.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on.
This is actually this is such a blessing. It's a blessing to have you.
Thank you.
I mean,
I've loved it. Thank you so much.
The fact that we could actually talk about, oh yeah, they did close the stage doors on those singers.
Yeah.
The way that you know your stuff. Let it not go unsaid.
Some.
This man knows his stuff.
Some stuff.
Love this man.
Well, it's
Fair catch, you guys.
The
Thank you.
soundtrack
So great.
is infinitely repeatable, and
Yeah.
know, War of the Rohirrim lives
I
up
played it while I was
to-
writing my film review. I listened to the entire soundtrack. It helped me write my review. It was perfect.
Oh, awesome.
It was great.
Excellent. Oh, thank you very much. It's been honestly, it's been lovely. Thank you both so much indeed.
Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Under a lot of pressure and under very special circumstances, and you have come out from under Howard Shore's shadow, which is immensely long, and you've really you have made such a musical statement in Middle-earth, and thank you again for the biggest jump scare I've had all year. It was so good. Can't get enough of that. It was so good.
Happy. I'm so happy you enjoyed it. That's amazing.
Everybody has enjoyed it. I mean, even
thank you.
I even asked Facebook's AI. Let me bring it up on screen. What people are most interested in, and AI says audiences are thrilled by the iconic music and themed movie experiences like special steins and popcorn buckets. So the fact that they list the music as first
next to the popcorn buckets,
the AI called it iconic music. So there you go.
Oh, cool! Wow, thanks AI.
Yeah.
So great. So great.
That is great. I'll take that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, brother.
Everybody
Thank you.
Thank you for yours.
Follow Stephen Gallagher on Instagram. That's your primary social.
Yeah,
platform,
it is. Yeah.
You don't
if
have a
you've got any
SoundCloud
questions
or anything like that you're sneaking out outtakes
have
that
a
the studio doesn't know
SoundCloud?
about or anything like that.
Oops.
Our Discord is wide open, by
Busted.
the way, folks.
All right, I'll come back in. I'll come back. Thank you so much for having me, and just have a wherever you are in the world, take care and be well.
People in the chat room, Cliff,
for
are
listening.
asking if we're going to do a show next Tuesday because it's Christmas Eve night. We haven't decided yet, but if
I can't. I've got booked. I got booked on a job. Sorry.
So Cliff can't. So maybe me and the chat room can have a nice conversation about Haladriel and all the ways Galadriel and Sauron can hook up in season 3. That would be
you're
a
right.
great
Before we go,
gift
thank
for
you.
me.
This is thank you. Last one in the live chat has given me a gold star. Thank you. I'm a big fan of Miyazaki. Everybody knows that, but that goes hand in hand with his ongoing relationship with Joe Hisaishi.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Tim Burton usually won't make a move without Danny Elfman supporting him.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
and we're at this, I mean, there's a relationship now, and it always has been a very successful musical relationship.
Yes.
Name your favorite score by Joe Hisaishi. What's your favorite score?
My
I'm just
favorite
quite
score
curious.
by Joe Hisaishi. Oh man, that's, you know what? It's probably Totoro, because that's the score that my children were introduced to the world, and I just my kids singing "Hey, let's go," or you know
Hey, let's go.
yeah. I still have a lot of lovely memories with that. I think there's so many good ones though. I think that's probably my favorite, just because I know that
Yeah.
the first time, like, I was watching those films as an adult, and our kids were watching it, and it's the first sort of thing that we connected with. We're like, hey, we both like this. You like this. I like this. And the music is so joyful and so celebratory. And I always think his work, and I mean this in the best possible way, his work is so elegant. It skirts with being, it's almost really cheesy, but it's not. It's actually quite the opposite, but it almost skirts the edge, but never goes there. It's just always so just wonderful. And if I'm ever in an upset mood and you play that, it's just like, oh, instantly you're like, oh, I feel better. It just feels, yeah, I'd say Totoro today, actually.
Yeah.
That's
Good stuff.
So beautiful.
For
So good. What's yours?
I love it. That's a great choice. Thank you. I love that choice. I had a Lord of the Rings temp track in my head for quite a while, and it was really the Princess Mononoke soundtrack.
So good.
Those,
So
I mean,
good.
big. I mean, there's a lot of Western
good.
influence, like Western
Yeah.
orchestrations.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Mr. Hisaishi was not shy about embracing that element, those
but
big
taking them to,
sweeping
yeah,
themes. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that stuff.
I'm a big, yes, me
Yeah.
too. You know what? I have not seen The Boy and the Heron yet, and I need to go and do that.
Guess
That's
what?
my,
Let me tell you now, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
Right.
But that score is nuts. That score is one of
Right.
the best that Joe has ever done. It's a great score. It's fantastic.
You know what I saw a couple weeks ago here in Los Angeles? A secret cinema. They showed, what was it? The Red Turtle.
Love the Red Turtle.
That's a gorgeous movie.
But
yeah,
film.
they hired a bunch of random Grammy-winning musicians. They didn't tell any of them what movie was going to be played, and they had to compose a live orchestra. They had to compose and perform live to screen in real time. It was like a live performance.
Amazing.
That's
and it
fascinating.
Was incredible watching the Red Turtle with live improvisation music.
Well, there's no dialogue in that film, and that's why it's the perfect film to work with in that way. You could have it done with a whole different music approach. It's really cool.
This. I deeply love this. I deeply want to see that.
Yeah.
Me too. Now I want to see it.
I'll send you the link, because I guess
please.
they do this every few months, where they just choose a movie and the musicians just come ready to vibe, ready to, you know.
Wow, that's crazy pants.
That's actually quite nuts. I'd love to see that.
They ad-lib their way through the whole film.
Yeah.
Musically speaking.
It's musical improv.
Wow.
I'm way
That's
into
so
this.
cool. You'll have to share those links with us, Justin. Please do. I'm very curious to see this.
This has been a wonderful Torn Tuesday. I don't know if we're going to do a show next week or the week after, because that would be New Year's Eve, and I don't plan to be online for New Year's Eve. But
that's true.
This has been, I guess, if this is the last show of the year, this is the perfect ending to a crazy year that we've all had. We got 2 Lord of the Rings things this year. We got the Rings of Power Season 2. Bear McCreary brought heavy metal into Middle-earth officially.
Yes, he did.
And the year
so
closes out with War of the Rohirrim in the top 5 of the box office. Stephen Gallagher, you've made it happen. You've made dreams come true. People were crying in the theater hearing that music in a darkened cinema again. And it was so emotional for me to be surrounded by people that you could feel the emotion, and that's coming completely through the music, you know.
Oh, that's very nice of you, Justin. Thank you, Justin and Clifford. It's been a real privilege to meet you and talk with you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time. As the New
Hey,
Zealanders like to say, good on you, mate.
Good on you,
ya.
mate. Yeah,
Good on you.
All right, take us out, Cliff.
I want to thank our guest, Stephen Gallagher, so gracious and talented, and thank you for your time. And to our live audience, you guys are the community. You're really the mortar between the bricks. It's so great to have all of you from different platforms come to chat with us and bringing excellent questions. Justin and his Warhammer, he's dangerous. He's dangerous, ladies. Ladies, look out for this guy. He's got the Warhammer.
I don't have the Eowyn toy, but I have a giant hammer.
No, that's good stuff. But this is a great way to close the year. I'm afraid that I might not see you because I'm going to be Santa Claus at the Beverly Hills Hotel on Christmas Eve. That's my next job. So I'll be seeing you guys there in my crazy Santa outfit. So to close out, there are many blessings that have come our way. Let us not forget them, okay? It has been a rough year, especially for some of us, and other places of the world as well. It's been really rough. But there are moments where we're still human together, and those are the ones that really matter the most. So don't forget it. Don't lose sight. You guys do. Take good care of yourselves. Many blessings to all of you. Special shout out to Mr. Gallagher for being with us. And Justin, thank you for pulling all the strings behind the Emerald Curtain. As always, my co-host and friend and producer, many blessings to you as well, Justin. We love you guys so much. We'll be probably back on Torn Tuesday in a couple of weeks, 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm online at QuickBeam2000. That's where you can chat with me. I just started a conversation with Artie just a couple of days ago. You know what he said? Artie said, you know what? Me and my sister, when we were kids, we were always on the OneRing.net, getting all of our information from you guys. And now he's like, now I'm so on the other end of this, I can't believe it. And I said, Artie, you have made my night. And then he started quoting back to me lines from my movie review. And he said, no, you have made my night. And I'm like, I love you, Artie. You are so great.
Yeah,
you guys had a great team.
There's no difference between the fans and the creators. And, like, we're all just fans
exactly.
of J.R.R. Tolkien here.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
100%.
And that shines through, especially in your work, Stephen.
Thank you.
Such a great experience.
Thank you.
Yes, Father Christmas. Hey, you guys, if you don't know what to do, that's J.R.R. Tolkien for Christmas. Get your copy of the Father Christmas letters. Chow down. It's the best stuff. It's the one time where Tolkien really goes comedic and funny, and you're just the complete opposite of the tone of what we've been talking about all night. But it's really good stuff. And I wish you all very well. Have a safe Christmas and holidays and a new year. Until next time, good night and good luck. Or sometimes we say, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye-bye, everybody.